Transhumanizam, riječ koja označava poboljšavanje ili nadilaženje ograničenja ljudskog tijela tehnološkim putem. Jedan smjer transhumanizmu usmjeren je na poboljšanje ljudskog zdravlja kroz mehaničke dodatke ili čak zamjene dijelova ljudskog tijela. Drugi, puno kontroverzniji, bavi se spajanjem i stvaranjem direktnih veza ljudi s računalima i internetom, zbog čega tijela ljudi postaju neka vrst sučelja. Kako je to uvijek sa najnaprednijim istraživanjima, ona se odvijaju u nekim skrovitim, najčešće vojnim domenama i teško im je ući u trag, a tek nakon puno desetljeća spuštaju se na razinu svakodnevne upotrebe. Ali neke tehnologije možda već jesu među nama, u nama ili u okolišu, u vidu nanotehnologije ili barem jako sitne tehnologije koja ponekad čak imitira biološke sustave. Transhumanističke tehnologije svakako su na rubu mnogo čega, ali večeras samo ovdje, na rubu znanosti. Dobro večer. Harald Klaus Vela stiže iz Njemačke, tehnološki skaut, bavi se traženjem i razvijanjem novih tehnologija na području nove fizike i informacijskih tehnologija koje se mogu primjenjivati na polju medicine, agrikulture, energetske tehnologije, a također je i utemeljitelj konzorcija za istraživanja vezana za morgelone. Na engleskom Consortium for Morgellon-Related Research, koga zanima. Dobro večer.
Good evening.
Većina ljudi koje sam ja sreo, koliko god da su ih zanimale neobične i egzotične tehnologije, mnogi nisu čuli recimo za pojama morgelona koji će biti dio današnje priče, koja se zapravo bavi transhumanističkim tehnologijama. Pa prije nego što zaoremo u tu egzotičnu materiju, kako i zašto i kojim putem ili načinom ili okolnostima ste se vi uključili u tu temu? Kako ste se uopće počeli njome baviti?
For me, the story began in Norway in the year 2012. I was working in the field of medicine back then, especially related to electrosensitive people and their problems. And it was mainly a coincidence that in that area where I lived and worked, we had a number of farmers who lost parts of their harvest in that year, and they couldn't find the reason because the weather was fine. The weather was basically perfect for harvesting hay, but the nature just stopped growing in the middle of summer, and they had done some laboratory testing on their biomass and couldn't say what it was. That they had values, but they couldn't read them. So I was a crazy scientist from Germany, so they asked me to help out, and that was my entry card to the topic of transhumanistic technologies, because what we discovered through diving into the topic was that there are certain agents found in nature that are not natural, that are high-tech particles, it's nanoparticles, it's piezoelectric nanoparticles that have very, very fringe electromagnetic and optical qualities. And from there on, once you're into the connection between biology and optics, you need to dive into this topic of transhumanism.
Koje je podrijetlo tih čestica na tim poljima?
There are many words for it. Some people call it geoengineering, some people call it chemtrails, some people who are deeper into the topic say it's just military applications or applications connected to the secret service community.
Možda je dobro sada na početku te teme uopće definirati što su to zapravo transhumanističke tehnologije. Što vi smatrate pod transhumanističkim tehnologijama?
Okay, transhumanism is basically the attempt to create an artificial interface between the human being and his perception and a computer. So this is the basic definition. Now, if you ask a transhumanist who is doing public relations, he would always say that it's about giving access for the human to gather information or to access information from an intelligent computer, kind of having your inner Google or your inner Google Maps so that you can find your way better. If you go into the scientific papers where they're just talking between themselves, the transhumanists, it's always exactly the opposite. It's about the machine getting access to the human. So these are the two aspects of transhumanism, and the thing we find in nature are, as the papers, always about giving the machine access to the human.
U svakom slučaju, spomenuli ste da se radili o malim česticama. Zanemarit ćemo sad cijelo područje transhumanizma koje je vezano uz kiborgizaciju ljudi koji imaju medicinske svrhe u smislu zamjenskih dijelova tijela. Isto tako i ovaj dio koji na neki način pokušava kroz neku makrotehnologiju premostiti jaz između ljudi i strojeva. Tehnologije o kojima ćemo danas pričati su zapravo male i sitne, što ih ne čine manjim tehnologijama, nego u stvari većim tehnologijama. Postoje, prema vašim istraživanjima, do sada 3 generacije transhumanističkih tehnologija, tako ste ih barem vi nekako posložili kronološki, koje utječu na ljude. To je, naravno, primarno, inače ne bi ni bile transhumanističke. Optimistički ste rekli da su 2 od njih propale i da imaju neki mali efekt i još postoje razlozi zbog čega nisu više zapravo toliko fokus na njima, a 3. je tek u razvoju. Pa krenemo po redu. Od kada uopće u suvremenom društvu možemo pratiti u blisku prošlost transhumanističke tehnologije i koje su to 3 generacije i kako su se smjenjivale? Koja je za početak bila prva?
The first one can be read as an attempt to get access to the human nervous system by radio frequencies. And this is the basic idea is to add something to the body that turns the nerve into something that is sensitive to radio frequencies. The first steps or the first things related to this generation of technologies basically was a natural, or not natural, but an occurring group of diseases. It started in the 60s in the United States with chronic wasting disease in the open woodlands, with cattle and deers that suddenly had funny symptoms on their nervous system. This was researched, and once it was clear what components lead to this disease, we can see the first attempts in the 80s where people got involved to test possibilities on animal populations. In Great Britain we know this as TSE, the mad cow disease, where in front of this epidemic we had a mandatory vaccination that made sure that one of the components of this disease, it is a lack of copper is necessary, a plus of mercury is necessary, and this vaccination had this lack of copper created artificially, and it was mandatory with some hysteria brought to the British farmers. And basically all of the cows who had this vaccination in this campaign died of the mad cow disease afterwards. So this can be regarded, we don't have proof for the intention behind, but it can, because of this hysteria, it can be regarded as an unconscious attempt to test what is possible with this set of diseases.
60. godina u Americi to je jednostavno bila posljedica čega? Zrakoplova, industrijskog zatrovanja okoline.
It was a silver barium pollution by industry. It was a barium pollution by cloud seeding for making rain for the farmers. And within the cloud seeding agenda, you also had these piezoelectric nanoparticles in use. So basically all the compounds were there, the additional one, and the lack of copper in this area was something connected to the quality of the soils. Mm-hmm. And if you then go to Great Britain in the TSE period, all the components were there, and the lack of copper was created in an artificial way.
Na koji način su te tvari 60-ih slučajno, a 80-ih namjerno, jer kao što je rečeno, ako postoji neka mogućnost da se napravi oružje, napravit će se, koji su imali utjecaj, prema vašem mišljenju, na ljude? Koje tipovi bolesti su donijeli ljudima ili ljudima koji se ne osjećaju bolesnima, na koji način je utjecaj tim tvarima ih promijenio, mlađe, starije, svejedno?
To understand this, you need first to understand how the nervous system works. You have in the nerves, you have the central core where the signal is transmitted, and then you have a layer on top of it that is protecting the nerve and lets through only the chemicals that are responsible for transmitting the signal. Now, the thing is that first the mercury is destroying the protective layer. Then the nerves are kind of open to the environment. And then if you have a lack of copper in the body, this transmitting line that is based on protein, prion, copper chains is losing its copper. So the protein, prion parts are breaking loose and start to enter the entire biological system. So this is basically first destroying the nerves. And then if you have other metals instead of the copper that can take the place of the copper, then you get protein, prion, barium chains, which are open to electromagnetic fields. They can collect a signal from outside and start to transmit signals. And then these new formed chains recombine and connect to the nervous system different ways. And then with certain diseases, the second thing you need are these piezo crystals. So you can imagine a piezo crystal like a remote controllable battery that on command is ejecting electrons and creating a current to flow into the nervous system. And then you have these nanocrystals form as new dots and connecting points of the nervous system. And on top of the crystal you have these prion, protein, barium chains growing, reconnecting to the nervous system. So this is basically a kind of nanobot. You know, we don't have to imagine the nanobot as a real robot made out of tin and a computer core. It's basically on the lowest level of forms and materials, the ability to recombine in an intelligent way. So this is what is, in this case, mad cow disease, or with humans, what leads to the Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. It's the same principle. And now if you look on the other diseases that are connected to this entire topic, you have like dementia, you have ALS, you have Alzheimer. It's all based on the same damage of the nervous system. The only difference between it is the availability of heavy metals to substitute the copper. So, for example, ALS is not involving barium strontium like Creutzfeldt-Jakob, but it is involving lead as a heavy metal. And then you have different symptoms. You call it a different disease, but thinking about the origin and also thinking about healing, basically the best thing you can do is to go back to the roots of the disease, because there you can catch 5 diseases at one go if you can repair the beginning of how it developed.
Da, u zadnjih par desetljeća, evo ga, u nekim zemljama čak 50% ljudi starijih od 65 godina ima jednu od 5 bolesti koje ste nabrojali, što je zapravo jako velik postotak ako svih tih 5 bolesti smatramo zapravo jednom. Isto tako kapacitet pamćenja kod mladih ljudi opada, što naravno spušta kvalitetu života i slično. To je znači bio prvi tip transhumanističke tehnologije stvoren u okviru tih vojnih istraživanja. Sad možemo preći na drugi tip koji je, mada ga je prepun internet, doista spada negdje na rub opće poimanja postoji li i ne postoji. To su takozvani morgeloni. Što su to u stvari morgeloni? Koji su njihovi simptomi? O čemu se tu u stvari radi?
The thing that got visible for people, and I would also say the pictures that are so scary that actually nobody really wants to deal with it. It was the same with me when I saw it first. I said, "Oh, too ugly. Can please somebody else do that?" It is a kind of skin irritation where the skin opens, gets bloody, liquid is coming out of the body, and at a certain point you have red and blue fibers growing out of the body. This is what commonly is known as the Morgellons disease. And if you go into research of the private institutes or the private people who do research on this disease, the next thing you learn that these fibers are the mycelium of a fungus that is growing within the human body. And when I started to work on the topic, basically this was what was known to the general public.
Danas možemo pogledati neke vaše snimke, recimo snimke morgelona u kišnim kapima, s obzirom da na neki način su oni vezani uz ona vlakna koja često puta ljudi prijavljuju da padaju iz zrakoplova. Ja osobno imam isto uzorak toga jer mi neka djevojka poslala iz Slavonije, a bilo je vijesti po novinama i u Francuskoj i drugdje. Imate snimke morgelona u krvi pod mikroskopom. Također postoje snimljeni morgeloni izvan tijela, pa čak i čudne slike njih kako izlaze iz tijela. Koliko ljudi danas po vašim nekakvim idejama kontaminirano tom čudnom, kako kažete, transhumanističkom tehnologijom zvanom morgeloni? I koje su razlike recimo između Europe i SAD-a koji ipak su tehnološke predvodnice svijeta?
First, contamination is a difficult term. I would say everybody has been in contact. We have films, we call it dry particle storm, where you just ignite ultraviolet light at night, and then you see these fibers being in the air everywhere. So there must be tons of it around, and I would say everybody who is living on the planet was in contact with these fibers. Then you can say, okay, once it is inside the system, does it grow, and how far does it grow? So I would suggest, or I would believe that maybe in Europe 70% of the people have fibers within their body, but they're not growing explosively. There are a few here, a few there. They don't interfere with health. So it's just something that is within the body, and the body is not able to completely get rid of it, but it's not kind of taking over the body. If you look at the heavy cases where you can see things coming out of the skin because of this biology is exploding within the human body, we can talk about 300 to 600,000 registered cases worldwide. So if you look at it as a transhumanistic technology, they don't want to have us ill. The transhumanistic technology basically wants to have a few of those fibers available within the body, because it is again a possibility to communicate between a radio signal or an external computer, if you want so. And this time it is not the nervous system of the body, but it is the light communication that is transmitted all the time between the DNAs of the different cells. You might look into more spiritual descriptions of what is a human and talk about the chakra system. There you have colors associated to your light body, which is blue, green for the heart chakra, yellow for life force, red, orange for anger, and red for sexuality. So this is the basic system that is targeted. It's not about getting on our nerves in a way. It is about getting into our light communication.
Primjera u prirodi također sličnih ima. Postoje gljive u prirodi koje doista napadaju kukce i preuzimaju njihovo tijelo na neki način, naprave kopije njih. Jesu li ono u nekoj vezi sa morgelonima po principima i što se to u prirodi zbiva u stvari?
This type of fungus basically always was around, and it never was a danger for humans. There are families of fungus that are behaving very similar to the Morgellon fungus, where I would say this looks like being from the same family. And these fungi are used as myco-insecticides. Basically, it is a fungus that is normally infecting insects, and there are hundreds of labs in the world who genetically engineer these fungi to make them, let's say, weaponized, not against humans, but against insects, to maintain big plantations where, you know, if you put too many trees of one kind at one place, the insects rather do attack and try to re-establish a more lively nature. So there's a lot of research done in the field of farming and normal genetic engineering on this special family of fungi, because they might be useful in agriculture. So this is what led to the idea, or this was the first thing that led to the idea that something with this Morgellon is not natural. because the family is heavily genetically engineered. The second thing that is hinting to the fact that it is not natural is the content of organometallic liquids within this fungus. It is the thing that makes it blue or that makes it red, because this is something that does not appear in nature at all normally. So it needs to be something artificial, and when something is artificial there is intention behind that you need to find.
Što predstavlja ovaj romb okružen crvenim točkicama koji vidimo?
Okay. This is one aspect of the morgellon as well. The morgellon, also the ones that eat up insects, they assimilate part of the DNA of the victim for the purpose to be able to grow a mushroom, a fruiting body that has exactly the same shape, morphology, and etheric body, like the species it just had eaten. So if it assimilates an insect, if it eats up an insect, it assimilates the DNA of the insect, it builds the fruiting body in form of the insect, it even takes in the outer skeleton of the insect and integrates it into the mushroom biology in a very intelligent way to attract other insects to get infected. Yeah, this is the natural way. Now, what one would expect is that if a fungus of the same family is attacking humans like the morgellons do, that they assimilate part of or the entire human DNA and build mushrooms that have the form of a human embryo. And they do this, these mushrooms, they appear in the intestines, in the inner intestines of morgellon victims. But the interesting thing is it looks humanoid in a way from the morphogenesis, but you don't find human DNA in the system. You find a DNA that is brought together with the morgellons into the system. So they must be replicating or mimicking a different species that is similar to human but not human. And the way they carry in this DNA information is in form of red stem cells that are completely alien to whatever we know from life on Earth. They self-replicate in free nature, which is not typical. It's like the sperm will multiply outside of a human body. It's not within our biological context. And they are invincible. You cannot burn these cells, you cannot destroy them in acid, you could throw them into open space, they would not die at minus 200 degrees. This is something completely alien.
Spominjali ste utjecaj svjetlosti tijela na morgellon i način kako ga koriste. Postoje eksperimenti kroz razne boje rađeni na miševima na kojima oni na neki način svijetle čudno. Kakva je to veza svjetlosti tijela i morgellona?
Okay. If you go back in the history of transhumanistic technologies, it started around 82, 83 at Bell Labs in the United States, where they discovered quantum dots. Quantum dots are these organometallic liquids that shine when they receive a radio signal of a certain frequency. The problem with these quantum dots was that this heavy metal content was a danger to the body. Whenever the body got too acidic, then this thing dissolved and poisoned the body with heavy metals. So they were looking for ways to find small, tiny containers for these quantum dots that would protect the body from getting in contact with these liquids. And basically, if you look into the research, you find two possible solutions. One is nanofibers. They used to experiment a lot with carbon nanofibers that suck in the quantum dots, and then you have a fiber within the body and no contact to the poisonous liquid. And the second one, this is also about geometry. A fiber is one-dimensional line, and the second possibility is to have layers of materials where the quantum dot is concentrating in between the layers. And if you go into the language, the terms that they use, then you have a plasmonic antenna, which is a fiber, and a hexagonal plasmonic photonic crystal, which is the layer thing. And both are sensitive to radio frequency, but they serve different directions. The fiber is collecting light inside the body and sending it out as a radio frequency, according to the scientific papers. And the hexagonal crystal is collecting radio frequency, turning them into DNA-readable light. So you have a read-write unit, and in the scientific literature, it's two separate technologies. Now, if you look at the Morgellon fungus, that is never mentioned in the scientific papers, you find basically the same units as in the scientific papers. You have the mycelium as the growing fungus within the body that is up-concentrating the available quantum dots that are also around somehow for some reason. And then, during the life cycle of the Morgellons, you have some kind of containers that contain the spores of the fungus. If you imagine this mushroom growing in the stomach and in the lower intestines, it looks like a human embryo. The human embryo has one eye in the middle of the forehead, and on this one eye that looks like an insect eye, you find these hexagonal containers of spores, which are 100% identical from their function with the hexagonal plasmonic photonic crystals you find in the literature. So as it looks like we have research that is not connected to any political agenda, then we have like 30-40 years of development, finding a species or creating a species that serves exactly the developed scientific theories and models. And then we have a self-replicating, self-assembling unit in free nature, found and described by Harvard nanolabs exactly in the chemistry and in the shape, that is obviously infecting people. And everything would have stayed undercover if we wouldn't have had this Morgellons disease. Kind of people who are too run down in their immune system, where this fungus takes over the entire body and starts to grow out of the skin.
Drugim riječima, prve dvije vrste transhumanističke tehnologije o kojima danas pričamo, ona s početka emisije, ovo Morgelloni, na neki način su za njihove tvorce, možemo reći, neuspješne upravo zato jer su skrenule pažnju da se tako nešto uopće zbiva, odnosno takve operacije su iz nekog razloga tajne. Spominjali se znači znanstvene radove o transhumanizmu u kojima se spominju teoretske stvari koje u praksi navodno ne postoje, međutim poznato je da su vojne tehnologije obično po nekim procjenama 30 do 50 godina ispred onog što se čita po civilnim znanstvenim radovima, što je sasvim zapravo i na neki način logično za zamisliti iz vojne perspektive. Postoji niz tako nekakvih koraka, bolesti, simptoma koje vode do Morgellona, koji su vezani uz živu infekciju, antibiotike, probiotike, jetru i slično. Kako funkcionira taj sustav?
You can read it as a line of coincidences. You can read it as a very intelligent concept. It starts with vaccinations. Vaccinations contain mercury, and the mercury is changing the environment for candida within the body. It makes candida grow. And the second thing mercury does is it is highering the rate of infection in childhood. It basically triples it. Infection today is treated with antibiotics, and then the antibiotics kill the rest of the, let's say, probiotic candida forms that normally live within the body. The moment it stops with the antibiotics, the environment is empty of candida, or the candida is killed, except all the pathogenic forms. They regrow and resettle on the entire environment, and then we have a antibiotica-induced change of the candida environment within the body. And the forms that are surviving antibiotics, they are really evil stuff because they don't serve as part of the healthy nature in the body. They try to take over. So the first thing they do is they send some signaling chemistry or hormones to the liver, and the liver is shutting down the lymphatic flow. So the liver stops detoxing. The liver is still detoxing the blood, but all the toxins taken out from the blood are stored within the liver because the lymphatic flow is blocked. Then it comes to an over-acidification of the body because of the liver not working properly, and to a further pollution with heavy metals. And this is exactly the environment the fungus loves. He loves acidity and he loves heavy metals. And once this is established, the body opens for the next disease, which is Borrelia. So you have a kind of row of diseases building up on top of each other. If you have Borrelia for a few years, you're completely intoxicated with the poisons they create. The liver is still not able to deal with it. And the last step in this line of development is that the body allows the morgellon to grow, because the morgellon has this function of taking in heavy metals and poisons and up-concentrating them in these structures, and there it is not of any danger to the body. So basically the body is asking the morgellon to help out storing heavy metals and poisons, what he does, what he loves to do. So let's say the morgellon is prolonging the life of the human by 3 or 4 years by first taking in all the poisons. But of course the morgellons themselves also create their own poisons, and they start to multiply and grow and grow and grow more and more. So at a certain point, basically the human is lost, and the last step of the morgellon is, okay, I used to be your friend, so let's take you out of the game, I'll kill you now, because this is hopeless. So this is basically the entire setup of this line of diseases. And the beauty of it is that it is very, very easy to cure it, because you need to go to the first steps and restore the candida environment, take out the mercury of the body, restore the candida environment, and then all the further steps pull back, and the morgellons normally they disappear after 3, 4, 5 weeks. You see the entire system healing. So there's a big beauty about understanding the disease and being able to intelligently fix the basement.
Kakav je utjecaj okoliša, s obzirom da vidimo da u ovim tehnologijama cijeli okoliš djeluje kao nekakav usklađeni medij kroz razne agense koje se ubacuju, pa kakvu ulogu recimo mogu imati tu GMO ili glifozati recimo, koji se rijetko kad spominju, a koji su prepuni dućani i prehrana suvremena?
It is said, I haven't seen the original paper, but it is said that the GMO food contains some substances that are needed for the morgellons to build up the skin of the mycelium. So the more you have of this basic nutrition for morgellons, the better they grow. This is one part. The second part, the glyphosate, which is the chemistry essential to most of the herbicides used worldwide, also produced by Monsanto. They disable the ability of the body to detox heavy metals. So these two agents that are around in our food on a daily basis, they very much push people into the direction of getting morgellons, accepting morgellons within their biology. And you can see the difference if you compare numbers from the United States to Europe. In the United States, the Morgellons disease is a major problem, and you would expect most of the population being heavily infected. Not to the state where they have symptoms, but they should all carry this to an extent that is meeting the needs of the transhumanist part of this disease. In Europe, it's not working because people live too healthy. I would say that, I don't know, 30% of the population are not infected at all. They completely clear out every single morgellon that is approaching.
Dobro, pričali smo znači o prvom i drugom koraku u tim, prema vašoj toj klasifikaciji transhumanističkih tehnologija, koje su zapravo na neki način, očigledno za njihove tvorce, postale previdljive po svojoj naravi. I sad to stupa na pozornicu treći tip transhumanističke tehnologije koji se zove sintetička biologija. Kako ona radi i zbog čega je drugačija od ovih prije?
Let's start with the basics. If you look into the DNA of every being, you have three different functions of this DNA. One is hardly understood by science. They call it junk DNA because they cannot say what it is good for. What they found out now it is that it follows the grammar of language in a way. And I would suspect that in a way this is the part that is connecting body and soul, that is carrying the epigenetics and the information that we learn on the short-term memory of biology. This is not addressed. Then we have two other qualities that are addressed by synthetic biology. This is one part that is creating light signals. This is the part of the DNA that is responsible for communication. And the other one is responsible to produce substances by creating RNA that is creating proteins, and so the cell is building up itself and producing substances for the biological function of the body. And these two are addressed in genetics. Now, the special thing about synthetic biology is that you don't cut and glue together like in normal genetics, but that you create DNA from, as a designer, from the scrap. You program it and then it is built molecule by molecule the way you want to have it. So you can synthesize the two fractions, creating light and creating substances. And then you can add a third type, which is about controlling DNA. And this is adopted from computer technologies. It is, you could imagine it as a line of transistors. So certain fractions of DNA that work as a transistor, and they react on outer frequencies, which gives you the possibility to utilize something that works in a similar way to a telephone call. Each transistor is opening when it hears a certain frequency. So you can start to dial in. First number is a frequency that is opening the first transistor. Second number is a frequency that is opening the second transistor. And only if all the numbers are in the right order and heard in a certain line of tones in the range of gigahertz, then the entire sequence is opening up. And what you get is a signal to the neighboring DNA that is activated then. So you have a system where you can dial into the genetics and make it either create light that you want to have created, or you make it create a substance. And this could be a heavy poisoning agent, for example. I don't know what, some cell poisons that kill you within minutes, that create cancer, that kill you within seconds. Everything is thinkable and possible once you have this dialing in thing established. And the way you put it into the human body is combining it with the lipopeptides. It is something, I think they adopted it from the principles of nature, how viruses infect cells. It is an agent that is opening the membrane of the cell and pulling the artificial RNA or DNA inside the cell to have it inserted into the chains of the natural DNA.
Prije kad ste spominjali one read and write units, kako ste ih nazvali, zapravo primanje elektromagnetskog zračenja i svega drugog možemo malo prevesti na jedan jezik koji je shvatljiviji nama svima. To u prevodu bi značilo da se može snimiti signale, recimo nečije ljutnje, i potom ga distribuirati drugim ljudima i na neki način ih zaraziti uvjetno ljutnjom. Je li ovo što sam sad rekao pretjerano ili to spada unutar mogućnosti takvih tehnologija?
There are some interviews around with people who have been in the scientific programs run by CIA where they tested it. And what they say, that it is absolutely real, that it is possible with controlling all the different light qualities. You can transfer entire sequences of experience from one person to another. In a sleep mode you can transfer entire dreams.
Evo, koliko god sve ovo bilo čudno, još uvijek u okviru više ili manje poznatih principa i tehnologija koji imaju neki svoj temelj u raznim objavljenim radovima. Na kraju krajeva riječ je o naprednoj tehnologiji koja nastaje u ovo doba, koja je inače odlikovano naprednom tehnologijom, pa nije toliko ni nezamislivo da može nešto biti tehnološki naprednije od onog što znamo 10, 20, 30 godina. No, primijetio sam da u ovim temama kad se krene se vrlo lako i često putevi krenu i izvan tih poznatih terena i krećemo u pojmove koje možda ni ne razumijemo najbolje, ali recimo neobične neke stvari kod Morgellona mogu čak i povezivati nas sa poviješću, sa prošlošću, sa nekim tehnologijama koje su nekad nazivane magijom, crnom magijom i slično. Koje su to neobične stvari kod Morgellona koje zapravo nas navode i u kom smjeru ste vi krenuli kada ste počeli razmišljati u tom takvom nekakvom malo neistraženom smjeru?
I worked very close with a Morgellon victim from Berlin. It was a woman that addressed me because she was afraid that she would have to die from this disease, and she couldn't find help in the medical system. And I was in the funny position that I wanted to publish about the disease, and my editor said, this is only bad news, we need some good news in between to make it readable for the audience. And then I said, okay, I found this girl that was heavily infected and was suffering, and I said, I'm just sticking to her side and help her to find a cure. And once we have found a cure, then I will be ready to publish because there's a good news involved as well. So this took about 2 to 3 months. And she used to be a very, very skilled photographer. And she made picture documentations of every single thing that left her body. That was one part of her role, and she's an excellent photographer. And the second thing was we spent very much time together trying to find solutions, and she told me in detail how it feels like to have this disease. And there were many aspects that do not really connect to the fungus part. It is like, if you look at the official name of the disease, it's delusional parasitosis. It is about having the feeling of insects crawling within your body. Not like trying to get under the skin, opening holes. It's just like being on a parallel dimension, getting everywhere, getting into your head, getting into your feet, getting into your stomach, being everywhere, and hundreds of them, all this size. So this is something all the heavy Morgellon victims, whenever they have these fruiting bodies in their intestines, they start to have these sensations of having crawling beings. And this is one aspect of the Morgellon disease. You connect this to these red stem cells that look from the genetics as an alien creature. Then you look again at the Morgellons, and what you find with the Morgellon fruiting bodies, that you have a kind of male type and a kind of female type that even show reproductive organs. And the funny thing is about these reproductive organs, they don't look like mushroom tissue. They look like something really living, more like an animal type. And they very much resemble the reproductive organs of spiders, as shown in our nature. So you have something crawling within your body. You have something crawling that is invisible. You have something that is spider-like. And then if you look back into older sources, if I put myself back 1,000 years or 500 years, if I have something crawling in my body that is invisible, I would think about a demon. If you look back at the Arabic tradition talking about demons, you even find drawing of these species of people who were at a certain time able to see them and to live with them. And they are spider-like in their biology. So it was more like a jigsaw puzzle. You could not really grab all the pieces, but whatever came across kind of was putting together a picture of Morgellons as being a kind of light placenta to feed demon babies and help them suck enough life force out of a human body to be able to tunnel onto higher realms where they start to be invisible for us. And once you get into this type of picture, more things start to connect to it. Like, very seldom, but it happens, some Morgellon victims extract insect skin through their own skin. It is like something went wrong with the birth of a demon, and the dead body doesn't manage to get onto higher realms, so it is within the tissue of the human, and it needs to be extracted, so it comes uglily out of the human body. This is something then, these Morgellon fruiting bodies come in a rhythm of 28 days, the development of the fruiting bodies. So when the period is over, it is a very painful state for the patient where the light is extracted from the brain and flows into the intestines. So this giving birth to a demon is something that is sensible for those patients. So this is kind of how the thing created, or how the thing started, that we started thinking about these aspects. The other thing is films like Matrix.
Dobro, danas bismo rekli recimo transdimenzionalni entitet. To je suvremeni izraz. Možda bi ljudi neki u našoj prošlosti nešto drugačije rekli. Krenuli ste tražiti znači interes, izvor Morgellona negdje u povijesti. Neki mladi istraživači su vas uputili prema biološkim oružjima Trećeg rajha, gdje zapravo niste naišli baš specifično na Morgellone, ali bilo nekih drugih stvari. Potom neke enciklopedije koje su i danas prisutne, ali u nekim starim izdanjima iz 1880. spominju opet neke tvari iz 14. stoljeća koji imaju neobične osobine. Vidjeli smo neke slike tih arapskih tih demona, kako ste ih vi opisali, koje zapravo stižu iz knjiga Necronomicon i također kako na neki način nalikuju slikama ove pacijentice koja je vama zapravo s vama istraživala svoje izlječenje.
And if you try to get this full picture as it looks like the diseases we are suffering now, and this is basically, if you look at the last state, it is autism. As it looks like, the entire geoengineering topic is heading to the point where the human soul is driven out of the human body, giving space for demons or an outer species to take over our biology completely. So this is kind of the full picture that is about, let's say, planned from the other side. And what we have been trying to do is find on the medical side solutions that help to heal all the diseases connected to it and help to close the human biology to make it.
I na kraju koji su poznati lijekovi za Morgellone?
Basically, the cure for Morgellon is the cure from Candida. We prepared remedies to serve this at the best possible method and way. It's all, who is interested, you can find it in this time loop consortium or the connection to the pharmaceutical industry that is selling the stuff and so on. And the second thing is that we found ways to disconnect humans from the consciousness field that is connected to this alien black goo. There also we created remedies to help to find back to a connection to, let's call it Mother Earth, away from the demonic fields of consciousness that are there to manipulate us and to keep us in a kind of prison.
Da, spominjali ste da je otvaranje srčane čakre ono što zapravo na neki način može nadjačati čak ove sintetičke tehnologije, te sintetičku biologiju i njene utjecaje na DNK. To bi recimo kad smo već zakoračili u ezoteriju bio sasvim prikladno ezoterični odgovor.
It is a funny topic because it reappears wherever you go. If you deal with the Morgellons disease, the best thing, the easiest way to get rid of these demons, of these crawling creatures, is to open your heart chakra and flood the body with a green light. This is something that we learned how to, even during treating the people, we were using this technique to just get rid of them. Also with the third way or the third attempt to get access to our DNA light communication, what we found out that the only way to keep out these external fields of the system which act on a binary way of communication is to open your heart chakra that is trinary in communication and to fill your entire body with a green light, and then you have a system that is able to deflect and to protect the body from outside influence. So it is funnily, it is always the love that is the solution to all these problems.
Haralde, hvala, već smo vrijeme prekoračili. Do neke sljedeće prilike, doviđenja i sretan put natrag u Njemačku. Hvala i vama na pažnji. Eto, transhumanističke tehnologije često se prezentiraju na isti način kako je to poznati SF pisac Theodor Stelzinger i napravio, nazvaši svoj glasoviti roman More than Human, više nego ljudski, više od čovjeka. No pravo je pitanje, nisu li takve tehnologije zapravo suprotnost, odnosno čine li nas manje ljudskima? Nismo li možda već i sami sa tim svojim nevjerojatnim biološkim kompjuterom kojeg zovemo tijelo i um na neki način napredna tehnologija koji nisu potrebna poboljšavanja kad je se održava na ispravan način? Na to pitanje naravno nastavlja se cijeli niz pitanja, recimo tko je taj tko je spreman uložiti u razvoj transhumanističkih tehnologija, ako ulaže, koji mu je interes, je li mu motiv doista altruističke naravi, navodno poboljšanje čovjeka, ili je posrijedi neka druga agenda, koja i zašto je tajnovita ako postoji, ali za večeras je dosta i čudnih pitanja i čudnih odgovora. Pa zato vam želim laku noć.